Hi everyone, I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous. And here's his story. And this Anonymous, I've read a few of his stories before. He works as a mechanic for a long time. A lot of problems with his boss. His boss almost treats him like they're married. Some real aggression issues going on. So Let's see what's going on. I am remaining anonymous. Hello, Ollie. Long time no see. I've been very busy these days. Yep, I have a full schedule all the time, but I still intently follow all your videos. I am remaining anonymous because I still have more stories. Gonna go back to where I was broken. I also worked for a covert narc when I was in my early 20s. He was just a few years older than me. He had World War II parents. His black military sergeant and his mom, a white European from Austria. And now that I look at it, his family had really strong narcissism and one-time golden child until his dad took that away from him and gave it to another sibling. And his mom always mentioned how that really damaged him. His dad was killed the same year as mine. It was like that was what we had in common. My involvement started in a bad time of my life when I lost my home and I had to get out. This guy had a ton of properties and cars, and I maintained all of them. But his main forte was street pharmaceuticals. Him and his whole family. Everything he had, I maintained. In 3 states for 3.5 years, ranging from construction work, janitor, mechanic, groundskeeper. One building he had was a quarter of a city block. Took almost one whole day to mow that lawn on a 90-degree day with a push mower, as in winter cleaning snow with a shovel, not to mention the other properties to do after that. I was 22 years old with a bad cocaine habit and a variety of other drugs. I remember one winter at this particular property after I got out of the hospital having hernia surgery and I was trying to recuperate. He said, "Why the fuck aren't you working?" Then he took a snow shovel and said, "Let me show you how to shovel without fucking yourself up. See you use your thigh on your good side." His mom many times had to back him off me because I was the most valuable and hardworking for anything or anyone he valued all zero. He one time taken me to another job site on his motorcycle. When riding down a hill doing 140, he rode a couple miles with both hands off the handlebars, saying, "See, no hands. Know what the fuck I'm doing. I wouldn't kill myself. I love my ass too much." Yeah, right. His end proved different. He had all types of nice cars and trucks. He'd give me one of them to drive and then turned around and took it back. Also, if he went to public restaurants he would say and do asshole things to really humiliate me everywhere. Everywhere we went, he always had his entourage and he always called himself royalty. He always liked young girls, and he used to constantly tease me with them, and he used to try to control me with drugs. I had a really bad drug habit for 5 years, and any work I had done for him was absolutely valueless. Another time, I was staying in the basement apartment. He'd come by to get if he had something for me to do. I opened the window. He pulled his dick out in front of me. He didn't piss on me, but close enough, and I went ballistic on him like a rabid dog. And he never did that again. And it's funny that your current boss has this thing with pulling his dick out as well. You see the pattern here? Because in your other stories, you're talking about your other boss doing the same thing. You get into these weird work relationships with these guys where your job becomes your life, and it becomes your boss becomes your marriage. It's weird. I also used to freak him out by making 100% true predictions to him. He could do it, but I'd done it better. He even tried isolating me, but I still adapted to my surroundings. It's been times I've eaten canned dog food for dinner. I've tried for many months to contact my relatives who were thousands of miles away without success. This was the 80s and I had no knowledge of narcissism then, but deep in my gut, I knew many things were seriously wrong. Everything just seemed entirely off. It felt like time was running out for me and I knew I had to make some serious changes. Shortly after that came my 23rd birthday. I gave myself a real good present. I came back to the Lord, went back to church, and completely went cold turkey on everything. Still clean from drugs today. My life was turned around for the better. Later, I started spending my spare time working out at local gyms. I felt much better. But that didn't curtail the narc, which meant I had to stand up to him more times than not and being hypervigilant. His mom was also a control freak, but she meant better for me than her son. When she took things over and my pay stabilized, I got my own apartment at my aunt's house. Then I saved up and got my own car. I made sure no one knew about my place. I tried many times to leave, but everyone either made it hard, talked me down, but I was still looking for a way to cut them all loose. But they all knew many people near me had to play, and I had to play it very cool. The narc was also sexually abusive to really young girls, and afterward he urinated on them. He also preyed on mentally challenged ones. He also preyed on the mentally served her up to his minions. I had to cut ties with my autistic sister, whom at the time was in a group home because of him. I would have done something I would have regretted if one hair on her head was touched because of him. Because of this, I lost touch with her to this day. He also had a legitimate job, but he had other people working in his place, and sadly, I was the one doing it. He hoarded all his paychecks and had a whole desk drawer full of them. In the end, he treated me in a really disdainful way. He threatened to go through my personal effects, take my identity. He's put cars in my name without my permission. I stayed in his basement for a little while. While I was working, he and his minions had an orgy on my bed. My Bible was on my bed and he wrote 666 through it. Lastly, him and several of his minions tackled me, handcuffed me to a beam, undressed me waist down, and had a young teenage girl go down on me. I tried to fight, but was fully compromised. I hit her in my struggle, and she didn't like that, and I just gave up lest things would have escalated, and she could have really done me damage. I went along till it was over. He got off on it, but I hated it. Shortly after that, when one of two government moles got killed. When one of two government moles got killed was when everyone got indicted and its properties in those 3 states got raided and forfeited and every vehicle towed. He was so tough, but he couldn't stand up against the government. He tried to flee to the Congo with a fake passport and got promptly apprehended. This was summer. I continued to work for the mother until early fall, when the government came back and took possession of all their property and another set of indictments. My name was on this one, and he said it wouldn't hurt his own ass, not only his own, but his whole family too. I went no contact with all of them, the mother especially. Then I did go forward with my life and enrolled in community college to get a GED. I knew sooner or later the US Marshals were going to find me. I said in my heart that when they do find me, I was not going to hide this guy. Whatever they wanted, I was going to give them. You treated me worse than shit, and now you want me to take some weight for you? You expect me to sacrifice myself for you? Nope. Let every chair stand up on its own legs. They caught up with me in the spring of next year. They went through my whole family searching for me. They found me at my residence, and I spent nearly a week in jail before the judge. And despite the prosecutor's best efforts to keep me detained, the judge still released me. At the first interview, the prosecutor jokingly mentioned how I was held down while a girl went down on me. The more I spoke to everyone, the more apparent it became to me that I made the choice. They let me listen to lots of the wiretap phone calls. I slept in the basement. His restaurant was above, which his family worked. Several of those calls was of him saying, "Tell that stupid dog-faced motherfucker to get his ass up." He was talking about me. They told me about a deposition him and accomplice attempted to name me as their mole's killer. They also shown me a photograph he himself forced on me with a Polaroid, but all he got was my side profile. The judge showed mercy to everyone. For him and that accomplice, it went from the death penalty to natural life, but all his brothers got was 10 years. His sister's mother and the rest of his family got off lighter, but nonetheless still marked, and me, it went from life to 10 years, to probation. They one time gave me a psychological evaluation and said I was slow. I spent my whole childhood in special education. I wasn't slow. I had been abused, and this narc took full advantage of me and my situation. I've always done the work of 20 men for half man's pay. I've since being away from that narc went through heavy depression, and at times felt like I was going to have a total mental blowout, or at times my mind was trying to destroy itself. It's lots more to this, but it's too long now. I also forgot to mention that he starved one of his dogs to death by not feeding or giving it water for a month after he got hit by a car. And other times when he tried to entice me to have sex with underage girls, and when that failed, he said, "One of these days, me and some other guy is going to hold you down and have some young girl suck your dick." Sounded like he was joking, but he was dead serious, as I literally found out. He also tried to get me killed by having me go to the associate's house to renew a temporary dealer's tag at 1 a.m. I realized many years later. Besides, most of the families were loose, and those types carried STDs, and AIDS at that time was rampant. I also got burned by 2 of them, one with gonorrhea and the other with a urinary tract infection. Even after my escape, I still had some issues, and knowing what I know about narcissism in hindsight, I should have immediately sought counseling, and I believe I still need it to see just how bad the extent of damage done to my psyche. This is one really long story. I still have more stories to tell as I go back to the point I was broken for narcissistic awareness. Best wishes to you and Charlene on my 2nd anniversary is only a few weeks away. Take care. See you again soon. I didn't know any of this about you, man. I really didn't. That's terrible. A couple things. This story, this is where I'm concerned for you. Because what I know about what goes on with your current boss, with him pulling his dick out and what was going on here, you need to get back to that point you were broken, because you are putting yourself into slavery for the narcissist. You are making yourself a literal slave to the narcissist. I mean, this is sick. And this guy tries to then bounce back to the Congo. Horrible. I'm sorry you went through that. And held down. And I mean, it's they do it for extortion as well. Blame it on you. Have a scapegoat. I mean, it's the ultimate act of scapegoating. They wanted to make sure they had somebody to try, and they tried to pin it on you. So I'm glad it went from life to 10 years down to probation. I wonder if you, I mean, this is in the 80s. If you were, and I'll say this, and I'm someone who doesn't get into the racial politics, but I would guess if you were white and they had done that to you, you wouldn't even have gotten probation. You know, depending on what state this. I mean, you got a child sex abuse ring, people from the Congo. I mean, you're lucky. You're lucky they didn't. I mean, for what the time it happened, and you're very, very fortunate. But I do wonder, and I have to be realistic, you know, why are you in probation? I mean, you're a victim too. They can hear you being abused like a slave, like you were put in slavery. And that's my concern about, you know, what was going on with your last boss. Because even after that, you still set yourself up in not to that level of what was going on here, but another. Your boss isn't your master. Slave. And then this country went to war over slavery. 650,000 people died for it. Died to end it. Nobody in the 80s should be living like that. Especially since it was and you know, it's you know, the guy's from the Congo, so I'm imagining it was another black gentleman doing this to you, doing this to the other children as well, and that is horrendous. But you are having my concern is for you, okay? You know, stop making yourself into a slave for the narcissist. You are not a slave. Slavery ended a long time ago. But I want to thank you for sharing this. I mean, this one's an eye opener. It really is, and I didn't know anything like this that had gone on with you. Nothing. So, you know, you should be proud for what you've accomplished, how you've taken everything and how you've really you're a fighter. You really are. You've been a fighter. And, you know, so thank you so much for your story and for another contribution. I really appreciate it. I hope this helps. Don't be anybody's slave. Don't be anybody. It's the same pattern. So, thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, a Facebook chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video just like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just sponsor the channel in general, new equipment, keep the lights on, the rent paid, the bills going. That's great as well. You know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. And if you're still unclear, wait for the instructional video link to pop up on the screen at the end of this video to walk you through all of that. If you're not seeing it, make sure your pop-up blocker is not on. Please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance.